25% of the population said yes. Then in the following slide, we are going to share more results. Here you have, a lo largo de tu trayectoria docente, ¿has tenido o tenés estudiantes con dislexia? Well, 45% of the population said yes, only 32% said no, and 23% of the population said I don't know. Then we have, si tuviste algún estudiante con dislexia, ¿has recibido acompañamiento desde la institución educativa? Okay, look at this percentage, which is in blue. Only 14, no, sorry, I got lost. Sorry. Oh, yes, I cannot. No, yes, okay. Si recibieron, estaba en esta pregunta, si recibieron acompañamiento desde la institución, only 24% of the population said yes, and the rest said no, and sometimes. Then you can see, the thing is that I move the chart with the participants, so I move this, I go to the following slide, that's why. Okay, then we have, si la respuesta anterior fue afirmativa, se te informó de la condición del estudiante. Well, here you can see that only 7% of the population said yes, me informó la familia. Then just some people said, sí me informó el estudiante. Only 22%, more or less, said no, no me informaron nada, and 67% of the population said yes, me informó la institución. Then we have, ¿has hecho alguna capacitación sobre dislexia? And here we have, well, this also called our attention because 70% of the population said no, porque no, estoy hablando en inglés y en castellano. No, porque no encontré capacitación que cubra mis necesidades. Perdón, pero esto de que está en castellano y tener que hablar en inglés es a veces un poco confuso. No, porque no encontré capacitación que cubra mis necesidades. El 17,8% sí realicé alguna capacitación en inglés. You can see that just a few participants have been attended sessions, training sessions about dyslexia. And now Sandra is going to continue with the last part, the last questions that we have selected to share with you.
Yes, the last questions were related to if the participants knew about the law that regulates inclusion in our lessons, or specifically learning disabilities, and then the concept of dyslexia itself. We gave them two possibilities, and 85% of the population said that it's a trastorno de aprendizaje de la lectoescritura, and another 14% said that it was a disability of learning related to reading and writing. Okay, then they were asked, it was an open question to see what suggestions they could give in order to think about inclusion in our lessons. And many people said that it would be interesting to have a subject dealing with inclusion during the teaching training program that would help them deal or know about special needs students. And also they asked for webinars or training sessions so that they could cope with these kind of situations if they had students with dyslexia in this case. In the following, if you can move it.
Okay.
Now, we will, with all this information, we decided to ask ourselves some questions. For example, what is dyslexia? Are there regulations on the topic? What classroom accommodations can we make? And how we can teach dyslexia-friendly lessons. And during this presentation, we will try to answer all these questions so that we get a proper definition, answers, or tips to deal with dyslexic students. According to the International Dyslexia Association, 15 to 20% of the global population has some language-based learning disability. That is a really big number. If we consider all the other disabilities that we have, dyslexia is the most common. And from all 15 to 20%, 70 and 80% has deficits in reading specifically, okay? So dyslexia, we can say that is the most common cause of reading, writing, and spelling difficulties, because all of these different aspects are included when students have this problem, okay? In the following slide, we will give you some definitions about dyslexia, because there is no one definition, but several options to think about. The term was first used to describe different learning disabilities in general. That is why this dyslexia is called the mother of the learning disabilities. This was mentioned by Davis in 2010. Another author mentions that dyslexia is one type of learning disability, and there are other learning disabilities that also include or are quite that you can associate with dyslexia. That those are dyscalculia or dysgraphia. In the case of dyscalculia, is a problem that students have when they have to solve mathematical operations, because they cannot see the numbers properly. So it is difficult for them to do mathematics if they have this problem. It is a really big issue. And dysgraphia when they cannot work with the letters properly, okay? In the following slide, we have more definitions. One is given by Rose and the other one is by Reed and Green. It says that there are different definitions of the term dyslexia. Rose defines dyslexia as a learning difficulty that primarily affects the skills involved in accurate and fluent word reading and spelling. And Reed and Green define it as a processing difference, often characterized by difficulties in literacy acquisition affecting reading, writing, and spelling. There is no one definition of dyslexia, but what we can say is that all of the definitions agree on the fact that there are some problems with reading and writing as well. Okay? Eugenia?
Okay. Yes, well, this slide is, we have decided to add these images just for you to know how a child or how a person with dyslexia reads or sees text. Here you can see, yes, and here there is another text, and we are going to see a very short video without the audio, but just to see how the letters start to disappear when they are reading. So let's look.
So that we have an idea of how the mind works when trying to read and decode the written system.
Yeah, here you can see how the letters are moving. This is what happens in our students' brain, in our dyslexic students' brain. There are different situations. Here you can see another. So it is very difficult for them to concentrate on what they are reading. That's why this topic is of paramount importance for teachers. Okay, and I think that there is another situation. Okay, here you can see that some letters, some words start disappearing for them. Again, the same, they move. So look at this, it's terrible. It's terrible for those students. That's why we need to be aware of dyslexia, and we need to take actions to help our students learn properly. Okay, well, this is the purpose of this is to show you what happens in our students' brain and how they, okay, if we have Emmanuel here, probably he was going to tell us how he felt when he had to face situations like this one. But then probably at the very end, you're going to see if we can share some of his ideas. Let's see. I cannot move. Okay, Now, something interesting. What about regulations or policies on the topic? You know that there are regulations. The regulations are really new. And we are just going to talk about the federal law about dyslexia, because here we have people from different provinces, and the different provinces have different regulations on the topic. So what we are just going to share is what happens as a federal situation. Okay, let's see. Okay, the law in Argentina, we have the law, Ley 27.306. As I said before, it is a very new law. It was passed in 2016, but it was finally implemented on April the 13th, 2018. There are two articles which are really important and crucial for teachers. The first one is article number 3, and there you have the definition of dyslexia. And it says that, okay, there are specific learning difficulties as neurological problems that affect cognitive processes related to language, reading, writing, and mathematics operations. So here you are going to see not just dyslexia, sorry, I made a mistake, but also you're going to see dysgraphia and dyscalculia, as Sandra mentioned, yes? So we need to be able, yes, to cope with all these learning differences or learning disabilities. And then article number 6 states that schools must adapt classes to guarantee all students access to the curricular designs proposed by each province. So here we have a homework. We have homework here. Yes, we have a task. We need to adapt our lessons and our classes to guarantee, yes, that all our students in the lessons, in the classrooms that we are teaching, they can have access to education. Yes. So now I will move to the following. Well, so here we have, so far we have discussed, well, the concept of dyslexia and some other learning disabilities connected to dyslexia. Then we, you know that there is a regulation about that, and it is a federal regulation. It is for the whole country. And now we are going to share with you some aspects, yes, so you can identify students with dyslexia in your classrooms. We have divided with Sandra and Emmanuel these in 3 different areas. We are going to talk about preschool, then we are going to talk about primary school, and then high school. Okay. In preschool years, what we are going to see mainly are difficulties in learning and remembering, of course, the names of letters in the alphabet. Some students are unable to recognize letters in his and her own names. This is really difficult for them. They have problems when they have to write their own names. There is delayed language and vocabulary development. There's difficulty in reciting days of the week sequentially. They have problems with sequences. Yes, the same happens with the alphabet, as I said before. They mispronounces familiar words. There is a persistent baby talk. Students cannot recognize rhyming patterns like cat, but, rat. That's why these will be then, we're going to talk about that as an activity that we can ask them to do to recognize the difference, yes, in the pronunciation of the words. And then, of course, that there is frustration with coloring, pasting, cutting with scissors. Okay, now what happens with primary school students? Well, they are a bit slow when they have to connect letters and sounds. This is typically, and this is like for us, we need to pay attention a lot, especially in English. There is letter reversals. So when they have to write, for example, B, letter B, they write letter D. Or you can see that they are inversions. So instead of U, they're going to write N. Yes. And there is also difficulty in reading words. And of course, there is frustration when they have to read tasks. There are problems with math symbols. They confuse the signs of operation. And there is problem in understanding time concepts. And of course, there is difficulty in learning and spelling, in learning spelling strategies such as affixes. Okay, now I continue. Okay, there is poor oral reading, there's lack of fluency. They search for a specific word and ends up using vague language. So for example, such as stuff or thing or place or people. Yes, they don't have they don't have a range of vocabulary to use. There is, they add pauses or hesitation and the use of hums when they are speaking a lot. There are confusions of words that sound alike. For example, when they have to say tornado, they say volcano, or they substitute words such as lotion for ocean. Yes. Of course, that they need extra time to respond to questions. And there's good self-expression orally, but not in writing. So when we assign tasks that they have to write, generally they ask teachers to read, to deal with oral activities instead of writing activities. And then Sandra is going to talk about secondary school.
Okay, we have to think that many times students are not diagnosed with dyslexia and they are already in the secondary school. So we have to also pay attention to this, even though they have reached this level of education. And the focus should be based on poor spelling, because they have a lot of difficulties in writing. That's why their written compositions are really basic. They generally avoid or resist reading or writing assignments. They ask their teachers to change the task because they have different problems, but they don't specify which problems are those. They have trouble when they try to summarize, of course, because reading is difficult for them. So they have a slow work speed. They take time and they ask for handing in activities that are delayed, because they have also problems in organizing their work and management assignments. There is some difficulty with performing in classes if they have reading or writing demands, as we mentioned. And of course, learning a foreign language is even worse for them. All these tips to be able to see or to spot a student with dyslexia was taken from Shaywitz in his book Overcoming Dyslexia in 2017. And there is also a dyslexia checklist, so that you can see later. We can share the links for you to go on reading if you're interested in that. Okay, now we will go to a different topic. Well, Eugenia was showing the book, but we can share the name at least. And since we saw some characteristics of dyslexic students, now we are going to focus on how to adapt the material for them, okay? Because we were discussing with with participants in another audience, and one of them told us that some headmistress or pedagogic people helping the students with dyslexia told them that they had to prepare completely different activities, that dyslexic students should have different activities to the ones that the rest of the students in the group had. And well, as far as we have read, it is not like that. You have to use exactly the same material, but you have to adapt it. And now we're going to talk about the different adaptations that you have to follow, okay? Eugenia, can you move on? Well, first of all, the general appearance or the layout of the text that you will be using. Bennett in 2013 and Ott in 1975 suggested different features, okay? For example, you are supposed to use gray or off-white paper, because the white paper is not, it does not help students with dyslexia with their reading disabilities. Use matte paper, and that makes it easier, because shiny paper creates a reflection, and for them that is difficult if they have to carry out these kind of tasks. The paper must also be thick, because if it is too thin, there can be a visual interference when they see it because of the letters that are on the other page. And so try to use a paper in which there is no transparency. And then Ott also mentions another characteristic, that you have to use books that look attractive to them, with good clear and color pictures, okay? That is a must if you have dyslexic students. And this is related to the general appearance of the text or the book. Then, as regards legibility, Bennett also suggests that you should use a specific size of the font that should be 12 to 14. We know that sometimes we use very small fonts because we don't want to pay too many copies, because now they are very expensive, but you have to think about this. Dyslexic students need bigger size of font, okay, because it's easier to read. Do not use underlining. Avoid underlining words or subtitles because it makes the text blurred. Remember the video that we saw and how the words move or tend to disappear. So underlining is not advisable either. And besides, you should use distinguishable fonts. For example, Arial, Verdana, Comic Sans, Oklahoma, or Trebuchet, because these sans serif fonts do not have curly bits. If you have, you can see there the difference between serif and sans serifs. Okay, the serif, those are the Eugenia is showing you the curly bits that for dyslexic students are really difficult to read. So avoid them and use the ones that do not have them. They are more beautiful, but they are harder to read for dyslexic students. Okay, now Eugenia will go on explaining what comes later.
Okay, we are going to continue with some adaptations that we can make to our material. As regards layout and design, we need to use uncluttered layout. Of course, we need to limit the possibility of visual disturbance. We need to incorporate space. Is that sometimes, as Sandra has said before, we put many things, we paste many things on a copy to save some money, but this is a problem for dyslexic students. So we need to leave some spaces so they can read the material without problems. Of course, we need to use, highlight keywords and phrases, and we need to put these keywords on summary boxes. Then we're going to see some examples. We need to use bullet points. Yes, because the use of bullet points makes students to, okay, they attract students' attention, so they go to the bullet points. The spacing is important, 1.5 spacing between the lines. Of course, that we also need to use uneven texts, yes, to make dyslexic students track across from one line to the next easier. And of course, another thing that it is really advisable is to break text into small parts. If we think about dyslexic students, they can read. The problem is that they cannot deal with the whole text as a whole. Yes, they cannot read with the text as a whole. So what we need to do is to give them a piece of text. Then when they cope with it, we need to give them another piece of text. That's why we need to break up the text into different parts, which are shorter. Okay, well, we need to use color as identifier to help those dyslexic students distinguish from the different activities. We need to show the steps involved in a task and place them in a sequence. So first you need to do this. When they finish the first activity, we give them another copy with another activity. When they finish this copy, we give them another copy. Yes, this is the way we need to implement to work with dyslexic students and help them learn. They need a structure to minimize the possibility of digressing from key points. Okay, here you can see, okay, this is a traditional format sheet of paper. Look at this. And here you can see a text which is dyslexia friendly. Yes, there is space, as I said before. You can see some words in bold, the type of font, the size, and the lining. Yes, so here you can see the different, the two texts, yes, and the one that we need to implement within our lessons to be dyslexia friendly. Okay, now we have been talking about adaptations to material. Now we are going to talk about classroom accommodations. Yes, what we need to do in order to help dyslexic students to work better in the classroom. Sandra?
Okay, well, first of all, you will have to plan for extra time. We mentioned that students need more time in order to carry out the activities. So you will have to see how you will work like individually with them while the rest of students go on working on a different task, because they need more time to carry out all these kind of activities, especially reading or writing. Do not, or avoid at least, asking students to read aloud, because that is too frustrating for them, or it sets them in an anxiety state that is difficult to manage. Again, do not ask them to copy from the board. They cannot do that, or they have great difficulties in that. So you one thing that you could do, I think that maybe it's included later, but I don't remember, is to send them the texts or the activities before the lesson, so they have them printed and they can bring that material to the lesson and go on working with the activities with the rest of students. Of course, you could use technological devices. You can ask them, depending on the context and the family, if they have computers or cell phones, to bring them and use them for their benefit. Omit all the extra stimuli that the text may have. Don't include a lot of pictures around. I love pictures. I love putting different emojis everywhere, but well, in this case, we should avoid them because they don't need that stimuli. And of course, try to use peer-mediated learning. Group students in pairs at least, so that if they have problems while reading an instruction or a text, another student might help them understand, or at least will read to them the text, or and so that they can go on performing the activities or trying to carry out the tasks. Okay, or maybe they have to create I don't know, a story, and you know that the dyslexic student cannot write, so he could give ideas or brainstorm ideas in order to complete the story, and the peer would write the complete task. Okay, that is very important.
Another thing related to omit extra stimuli. Sometimes teachers of English, we add music, we play music, yes, while students are working, and this is a stimuli. This is an extra stimuli. If they have to read, they are also listening to the music. Yes, it is very difficult for them to be concentrated on the text. Just another idea. Okay, then provide audiobooks where possible. There are a lot of audiobooks. You can find audiobooks in the internet. Of course, you need to help them be feel better. So you need to boost self-esteem. You need to design hierarchical worksheets. It is advisable to provide a glossary in content areas. And we need to clarify or simplify written instructions. Of course, that we need to use transparent words and omit the use of phrasal verbs. Okay, give students reading activities in advance, as Sandra said before. Present a small amount of work. We have also mentioned that before. Allow them to break down a project into smaller tasks. Diagrams and charts might be more effective than written summaries. Be flexible with deadlines. They need more time. So it is not that they cannot cope with activity. They need more time. Their brain asks for more time. Don't treat them differently from the rest of the class. This is really, really important. And I think that we think with Sandra and Emmanuel that if we adapt material, all students in our classrooms can benefit. It is not just for dyslexic students. And of course, we need to acknowledge for their effort.
Yes, and wait a minute before you change. Go back. I'm not sure if you were able to pay attention to the photo that you have there, the picture. It is advisable that, well, nowadays you have this instrument in way that dyslexic students can use to focus on specific bits of texts. So remember what we said about the stimuli that you should avoid. This helped them focus on small parts of text because they go from the top to the bottom of the text, moving this instrument that I don't remember the name, and it helps. It's a ruler, like a ruler, and it helps them focus on specific bits. If you don't have this, that you can use just a sheet of paper and just move it throughout the text so that you go on reading bits by bits.
Okay. Yes, and then another thing is that with this yellow, you can turn the bright sheets of paper into matte paper in a way. Yes, you omit yeah.
Okay. So to be dyslexia friendly, we need to, first of all, become familiar with the characteristics of dyslexia, appreciating the importance of the learning environment so that remember what we talked about, self-esteem and encouragement to these particular students. All the rest must know that they have some difficulties, but they have to respect the differences and work together to learn, in this case, English or any other subject. And we have to understand and see dyslexia as a whole school concern, because if it is only you, the teacher, who tries to make all this effort to change the material, to adapt the material, to include the student, but then the rest of the teachers don't pay attention, or the school itself is not dyslexia friendly, well, it is not really successful. So we have to think about coping with dyslexia as a whole in community, let's say, at school. And of course, we need to keep updating our knowledge and learn what things are new and the possible changes that we can make in our teaching practices. Okay. Eugenia, go on.
Okay.
No, yeah. Go.
Okay, it is important to notice individual students' preferred ways of learning because remember, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, if we pay attention to that, we can bring opportunities, we can provide opportunities for all our students, and to, of course, we make them succeed. We need to connect new learning with previous knowledge and then rehearse and revisit. And we need to protect students' feelings, realizing that literacy activity might be frightening for some learners. And of course, we need to provide dyslexic students with opportunities for success. And remember, last but not least, that dyslexic students are part of the class, and okay, they don't need to be, they don't need to feel that they are different from the rest. They are part of the class, right? And then Sandra.
Okay, well, taking into account teaching approaches, we have already suggested by Nijakowska that dyslexia teachers of English with dyslexic students use a multisensory approach to teaching. And when we say multisensory, that is providing input that would help them acquire the knowledge using the different senses. So you can stimulate the hearing system, the eyesight, the touching sense, so that they have the same input or stimuli, but with the different senses. And in the following slide, you will see how. Can you go on to the following? There. You have, for example, in the case of the students who are learning to write, you can use magnetic boards with letters, so they can read the words. At the same time, they move the letters to put them together, and they also can feel if the letters have different texture, how, and this is a good way of stimulating the different senses and using this multisensory approach to teaching. Then you can also use sand or any other material in which students can write the words using their fingers, so they feel the form of the letter and not only the substance of the thing in which they are writing. It is very important that this kind of tactile activities, okay, so that it is not only that they read or see, but they also feel it with their fingers. It is very important. It is also necessary to include flashcards to teach phonics and written words effectively, so that they can see how the different letters associate or come together to produce a different phoneme. So in that case, they could see and also hear the sound and make the connection with the written symbol. Okay. And in the following.
Okay. Here you can see, okay, this is a book. Yes, it's Sign Up to English Starter. It is by Richmond, Ediciones Santillana. Okay, this is the same activity, and this is not for dyslexia students. And what I have done is to try to turn this, yes, into a page more dyslexia friendly. Yes, I have done this on my own, so you can see that, well, I have recorded a neighbors, yes, to watch the video, yes. But here you can see some of the instances that we have shared before with Sandra. So here you can see some of the instances. So for example, you have the type of letter, you have the size, you have the lining, yes, the space between the lines. You have the colors, yes, for example, watch, complete, read. These are the instructions. They are shorter than here, what they have, yes, in the original page, and they are with a different color. So they know, students know that when they have read, they have the instructions, and they are very short words, yes, not phrasal verbs or not prepositional verbs, such as, for example, look at the sign. Yes, very short. Then here you can have the box. Yes, remember that at the beginning I mentioned that they need to have the objectives here with the grammatical or the linguistic exponents mentioned. Yes, like the agenda, what they're going to see in this unit. Okay, and here the same, words in red but not bold. Yes. To make them learn better. And of course, the color, yes, here it's like it's yellowish, right? Okay, and well, this is something that, yes, the spacing, right? Yes, there is space between the activities, not everything put all together. Okay, this is something I have done on my own, but you're going to see in the following slide that there are some books which are adapted for dyslexia students. This book is Talent Startup. It is by Cambridge University Press, and this book is adapted for dyslexia students. So you're going to see, yes, that some books today are being designed, yes, to cope with dyslexia students. So here you can see grammar, vocabulary. Here you have words, the linguistic exponents with a different letter. They have sans serif letters without the curly beads, you remember? Yes. Not a lot of material altogether. Yep. Okay, the instructions or the topics with different color. Right. Okay. Well, we have finished. We are reaching the end of the presentation. So we have thought with Sandra to deal with these short activities. So we hope you can participate. You can unmute your mics, or you can write in the chat box. This is a kind of exit ticket. So we are going to finish with this metacognitive activity to know if you have learned something new today. So what about number one? There is an agreed definition of dyslexia. What do you think? I cannot see the chat because I have my whole screen is covered.
I don't have messages.
Yo te aviso cuando aparezcan, a ver.
Okay. Do you think
there are thumbs down? So maybe they are using emojis. Thumbs down. Yes. But they appear
Okay.
on the other side of the screen.
Están en el costadito, chicas, ahí.
Yes, I saw them there. So you're right. There is not an agreed definition. There are several definitions that complement each other. So we have to read them and have our own definition, let's say. Okay, in number 2, it says dyslexia is an illness. Let's see your thumbs now.
We can turn this into a question. We can say, is dyslexia medical or educational? What do you think?
Yes, Juan Cruz has asked a question, a similar question at the beginning. I didn't want to interrupt you. He has asked if it was something similar to astigmatismo, or it had to do with the brain, not with the side, but with the brain at the beginning of the talk. I think now Juan has his answer, right?
Okay, dyslexia is not an illness, is not something medical, it is educational. We can educate, we can help students with dyslexia cope, yes, with the problem or issue.
Yes, but it is the issue is about decoding the written system with the brain, but it is not an illness. It's a different way of decoding information.
But of course, we can say it's something which has discussion. There is a lot of discussion on the topic. Yes. Okay. What about number 3? You should use serif fonts.
No.
Okay. Very good. I couldn't listen to the person, but I heard no. Very good. Very good.
And there are a lot of thumbs down. I like those hands. They are really nice. Yes, you're right.
Okay, what about 4?
Then
The difficulty is letter reversal.
Is that the only difficulty or there are others?
Oh.
Georgina, thumbs down.
Not sure.
And then someone said yes. Not sure. Okay.
Okay. Well, it is one of the difficulties, but it is not the only difficulty that they have. Yes. For teachers, it is the difficulty that the main difficulty that we can recognize when we correct our students' homework. Yes. But it is not the main difficulty that they have.
Yes.
What about
Remember
5?
that. Wait a minute. Remember that you can identify letter reversal or when students change one letter for the other. But then in the video, there were different kinds of dyslexic types were shown. So it is not only letter reversal, but some words disappear or they are blurred. So it is not only that. There are more issues related to it. Okay. Then
5.
The
main difficulty is reading, decoding. What do you think? Juan Cruz. Very good. Yes. Mariela, thank you. Okay, it is. We can say it is the main difficulty they have, but it is not only the only one they have. Yes, but we can say that it is the main difficulty, right?
Yes.
Okay, what
but
about
it is
number 6?
It is also related to writing. Remember that if you have difficulties in reading, then they will have difficulties in reproducing the language as well. Okay, yes, and the last one.
It is unfair to other learners to ask dyslexic students for less output.
For other learners to ask dyslexic
Which is
students.
not contagious. Yes, very good, Ona. I really like what you have written. Can be beneficial for all of them. Yes, very good, Georgina. Yes, very good, very good. Well, Sandra, do you want to say something? Because I interrupted you.
No, it's just the same because as you are teaching reading strategies, that would benefit not only dyslexic students, but all the rest of the group that you have in the lesson. So they can be applied in any subject, and it is useful for all of them. Okay, that's all.
Okay. Okay, and here, okay, we want to know if you have some questions. You can type them in the chat box, or if you want, you can open your mics and ask the questions you have.
But we think it is important that you focus on the cartoon that it's there. It says, how do you know I have a learning disability? Maybe you have a teaching disability. So it is important that we consider our role as teachers and the fact that we need to go on learning and become better professionals to cope with all the different learners that we have in the classroom. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Excellent.
any questions or ideas or suggestions? They are very welcome. You?
Well,
Okay,
these are some of our references we have used to prepare this talk, and what we are already reading. Yes, we are studying the topic, so, well, we want to finish with this phrase by Shadyar. No es la discapacidad lo que hace difícil la vida, sino los pensamientos y acciones de los demás. So we really hope you have enjoyed the presentation, you have learned something about dyslexia, and you have learned also how to make your classes, your lessons dyslexia friendly. Thank you. It was a pleasure for us to share our work, and okay, we are ready to continue learning on the topic. So if you have suggestions or ideas, we are open to receive them.
Excelente, gracias chicas. La verdad que un placer tenerlas acá, a todos los participantes, gracias, pero hermoso, súper claro y con un montón de herramientas que uno se puede llevar, tips, que eso me parece que es lo que hace rico este tipo de talleres, ¿no? No solamente escuchar la teoría, que a veces uno puede ir, leerla, traerla, sino llevarte esto, decir, bueno, sé cómo dar el primer paso, así que excelente, gracias, hermosa, hermoso y súper útil.
Muchas gracias,
Bueno,
chicas, un placer, sí. Gracias, Euge, gracias, Soledad, gracias a los países que nos acompañaron. Como dijo Vale, me parece que lo más valioso es esta combinación perfecta de marco desde un tema, pero por sobre todas las cosas llevarnos acciones concretas. Así que bueno, muchísimas gracias. Ahí está Freddy también, nuestro director general. Freddy, estamos despidiendo a las chicas. ¿Nos escuchás ahí?
Muchísimas
Muy bien.
gracias, muy útil y para seguir pensando, ¿eh?
Tal cual, tal cual.
Para seguir
Bueno,
pensando en dislexia.
es un tema fuerte, ¿no? Para seguir pensando en inglés, para seguir pensando también en castellano, ¿no? Las chicas pueden preparar la charla también en castellano y poder aplicar esto a otras áreas, así que seguramente vamos a seguir trabajando con este tema. Y en el área de inglés, los invitamos mañana al conversatorio, ¿sí? Mañana es un día, el día viernes, al conversatorio sobre cómo se enseña la segunda lengua en distintas partes del mundo, así que nos parece que va a ser una apuesta súper interesante pensar juntos cómo se enseña esta segunda lengua. Y hoy, ahora en un ratito, 2 charlas más súper interesantes, una sobre coaching educativa y otra particularmente sobre el camino de la tan ansiada felicidad con disertantes de México y Argentina. Así que los seguimos esperando en esta rueda de aprender juntos, ¿sí? Gracias a todos, gracias Euge, gracias Sole, gracias Vale. Nos vemos en un ratito en la próxima charla. Hermoso todo.
Gracias.
Gracias a todos. Gracias.
Gracias por invitarme.